by now, I'm sure you've heard about the National Association of Realtors settlement on the commission lawsuit. Well, today we want to talk about what's going on in that lawsuit. How do you adapt and thrive moving forward?
Right. And give you some hope for the future, because that's what we like to do here on the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast.
You've reached the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast, where real estate and reality meet. And now your hosts, Jan O'Brien and Matt Emerson.
Well, welcome everyone to the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast, where we align, connect, and prosper. This is episode 284. You can find all of those show notes over at WBNLpodcast.com. Yeah, Jan O'Brien, the bomb dropped on Friday.
I don't think anybody was expecting it to happen that quickly.
Right. I think that was kind of the case. It kind of left a lot of people a little bit like, what? This was supposed to go on for, you know how court cases go. This was supposed to go on.
Or they were going to appeal it and not settle it. But you know what? There's some good that came out of the settling, and that's what we want to talk about. And there's a lot of misinformation, guys. And so I know everybody's in, if you were listening or heard about it on Friday, you probably went through a litany of emotions from, oh my God, everything, what does this mean? Right. I instantly went to questions, like which we don't have the answers to, which is a little concerning about how quickly it was put out. Now, remember, it is not a done deal until it goes back to the judge in the court and they have to approve it. The judge has to approve it, which I just heard on an article, a news story yesterday that could take months.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be implementing some things by July. So why don't we dive in and start with what are the two big things that are changes that came out of the settlement? Now, the first big thing is, here's where I feel like why they settled. Okay, so it was a $1.5 billion. That's what the jury found in the settlement of that case. The Setzler, Barnett Setzler, I think is the name of it, out of Missouri. Now, the thing is, if they lost in an appeal, it could be like it could have been up to over triple the damages, I guess, over $5 billion. So what this settlement does is release NAR, all the sub-associations, state and local, and then all the NAR members, brokers that, it was 2020, it says 2023, but I think it's 2022. I think I read something and I think I assumed it was 2023, but I saw something again. Regardless, it's one of those years. Any broker that did less than $2 billion in sales volume, and I think now 2022, they're released from liability. What does that mean? No more copycat lawsuits, because there's some 20 copycat lawsuits that sprung up in various states since that first case was not settled, but was found for the plaintiffs, right?
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Well, the companies like Berkshire Hathaway is one of them, Home Services, that's over the $2 billion. There's maybe 50 to 80 brokers that still have some potential liability. And when you really read into this, just like in all lawsuits, I don't know how many homeowners were in this settlement, this class action. I'm sure it's maybe thousands. I mean, it's however many people in that time period. I don't know if it was 2022 or 20, because this lawsuit's been going on for a couple of years. Let's face it, the attorneys get all the money, get most of the money, right? And then whatever's left is going to be divvied up there, I guess, right? So the reality is, I like that, I like the part that we don't have to keep worrying about class actions.
Well, it's kind of funny, right? Because you think it's like this might have been one of the best things that NAR has ever done for its members. You know what I mean? Really, the big picture.
Well, because, and they went from 1.5
lawsuits. They would have kept coming and coming and coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. So yeah, it's crazy.
And they went from 1.5 billion, I think it was 1.5 billion or 1.2, whatever the number was, to 416 million or 418 million. All right, so there you go. That's what is in the settlement. But here are the two major rule changes that came out of it. Okay, so number one, biggest one, MLS is not allowed to display co-op offers of compensation. Okay, so I pulled this right out of the things that we've been receiving from National Association of Realtors, our local association, to expand on that. Okay, so you're not allowed to post that but there's a couple things that are in here. So you can't disclose, which is huge, which immediately brings up, how do you know if a seller is going to be willing to offer that? It goes on to say they can offer not compensation, but the seller can say in the MLS that they're willing to offer concessions to the buyer. So we'll get into this a little bit about how this is all going to work. But there's a statement in here that says the MLS could not, with certain exceptions, we don't know what that means, facilitate or support any non-MLS mechanism for listing broker or buyer's seller's offer of compensation. So that means not just in the MLS, what I read that to be, and this is what the problem is with when you get language with attorneys get together and write some language. What does that mean? Does that mean Zillow can't do it? Because the data comes from MLS and it goes out to all those portals and they can't offer it? Is that what it means by non-MLS? That's how I interpret that, but who knows? So there's questions right there, okay? So you can't publicly display what is the offer of co-op. That is what the big piece in this whole case was, is that sellers tried to say, or the attorneys for the sellers tried to say, we were told that's the only way we could do it. And this is where the whole antitrust was. This is what really bothers me about this lawsuit. It's like they portrayed the real estate industry as like we all got together and we all said the commission was 6%. And you see the headlines right now and they're all, the sky is falling. This is the biggest thing. It's going to bust up the real estate organization. Real estate agents are going the way of travel agents. It's just all this stuff. And there's no more 6%. And I'm thinking to myself, most places don't. 6% was years ago, okay, in different times. And I think there's some things that have been released that say 4.8% total commission is the average across the country. Not that people set the commission, just what it happens to be. So they made it look like we got together. But the problem is the National Association of Realtors, through the ones that they don't own all the MLSs, but the majority of them, the MLSs had rules that say you had to put something in the compensation field. It didn't say how much. It could have been $1, but the competition was such that people would put in whatever that number was based on the market. So that's part of the problem. You had a rule, National Association of Realtors says you had to put an offer of compensation, which you're telling sellers that they had to do that when they really didn't have to. So thus, the big settlement point was you can't do that anymore, number one. And then the second one, which is probably needed to be happening all along anyway, is MLS participants working with buyers must enter into a written representation agreement to specify the amount or rate of compensation before you start showing properties. So like most of us around the country, many people, you may already be doing this in various states, people just do it. Here in Nevada, I would say 90% of agents don't use a buyer brokerage agreement. So this is a massive change for our local city in MLS to get people used to it. It's just a new training. Everyone kind of knew they needed to be doing that, and they just didn't. They used a duties owed or an agency agreement. But the rest of the context of that part of the language is a little concerning. And again, I have a ton of questions on it. It basically goes on to say that you can't change it. Once you agree, so if I sit down with a buyer, we can negotiate whatever it is, or you can come up, we're going to talk about that. You could come up with what's your minimum commission and so forth that you're willing to work for. But there's language in here that says the agreement would also have to provide that the buyer broker could not receive any compensation for brokerage services that exceed the amount or rate agreed upon in the agreement. So now it's like, because here's the thing, we all believe ultimately that there are going to be sellers who still want to potentially negotiate, because we're able to negotiate commission. We'll go through that in a moment, because I pulled it right out of the Code of Ethics, because there's misunderstanding and misconception about you can't negotiate commission. So I'm going to clear that up today. But the reality is, how do we do that? So now we have to call every agent and say, we want to negotiate. My buyer is asking that, because here's the thing, my buyer's asking, will you cover my compensation, which is X? Will the seller do that if we put that into the offer? Because that's what we have been doing up to this point, everyone, right? Sure. We have been literally baking in the total commission And in my mind, the buyer has been paying that, not the seller, because it's in the offer.
Of course.
So right away, if it's and a seller, people are going to say, well, I don't want to offer commission. They're going to see if they can still sell their house, and they're going to think they're going to make more money. And I'm going to say, I don't think they are. So offer one includes compensation to the buyer. Here's your net, and it's going to be what it is. Offer two, no compensation to the buyer's agent. That buyer's agent is going to come in lower so they can have the money to pay their buyer's agent. So the net is going to be the same. Included in the offer, not included in the offer. Now, I say that in a perfect world, but prices are all going to be about what is going on in the market. So if right now we don't have a lot of inventory, there's not a lot of buyers though, because the interest rates are still high and it looks like they're going to stay high for a little while. But if and when, because at some point, hopefully the interest rates will get below 7% and be in the 6s, there are going to be a ton of people buying again. Or will they? So let's talk more about that. But when the demand goes up and there's not enough inventory, now people are going to be competing. And now we're going to be leveraging commission or asking for commission and concessions. And the person, and you know what's unfair in all this, Matt? Every way you look at this, until the government figures it out and buyers that only have enough money for a down payment figure it out, they are going to get squeezed out, especially when the market heats up and the rates come down and more people jump into the market. Let's say a seller has 5 offers, they're going to go with the best net, and the best net's going to be no commissions, no compensation, no concessions, and at or above list price. So that's the reality. And here's some more reality.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk reality here.
Qualified real estate agents, I think, are still necessary and desired by the majority of consumers. It's complicated. If you do a great job, you get the feedback from your clients because they're asking questions, whether they're a first-time seller or buyer or multiple times. People don't know all the ins and outs. They're not a real estate licensee. So buyers and sellers have always had the option to not use a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. Okay. The big change is buyers haven't had to pay out of their pocket. They've been able to put it into their offer, which in essence is they're financing the seller's commission that has been paid to the buyer's agent when you think
that's
about
right.
it. So but in cash, if somebody came in, if I have a buyer and they come in and they offer cash, that cash offer was inclusive of the commission for the listing agent, commission for the buyer's agent. So in my mind, the buyer has always been paying it. So now if my cash buyer is definitely not going to be including that into the net of what the seller will get, and the seller will net the percentage less that they were offering before. That's what I keep on coming back to. It's going to take a minute for everybody to figure that out, the sellers. Oh, we're not saving money. We're netting the same we would have if these rules never change. It's just all, to me, Matt, it is all about disclosure and the way it was presented to the sellers, that everybody probably fell into the competition is most people are offering X out there and you're not probably going to get a lot of people looking if you don't offer something. Those are the things that were used against the Realtor Association in this lawsuit. Okay, so buyers and sellers have always been able to do it. You think there's going to be more for sale by owners now because this disclosure thing has changed? I don't think so, because people are still going to try to sell their house, and the majority of them are going to need a real estate agent eventually because they don't, they get taken advantage of by people trying to get less and so forth.
Big question, I think really the big question here for me anyway is, will the hubbub around all of this either create this animosity from buyers and sellers to pay the same amount of commission?
That's a great point.
Or will advantageous realtors jump the shark, right, and start offering nothing to sell homes? You know what I mean? Which could upend things too. So it's. I agree with you. Just on its face value, it doesn't change anything, right? You take it out of the list price, it still has to be paid for, right?
What did you say?
If commission prices go down, it does affect.
What did you mean by nothing? You mean sellers offering nothing? I mean, realtors are
not nothing. I just mean offering less.
Oh, right? Yeah, I definitely feel that. I believe sellers are going to see, and they're going to, but that's the point. the reaction is going to be, I want to negotiate my commission. And commissions have always been negotiable. See, this is the thing. I feel like the way the media is doing it, it's making it sound like there's going to be an automatic, everyone's going to lower their commission. And I'm like, look, if I went on an appointment today, it's going to be very easy to say, there's always been discount brokers. You could go get a discount broker right now and get a flat fee, and they're basically going to put in the MLS for you, and that's it. And you're on your own. That's not a service that we provide. But hey, if that's the service that you want, good luck. And if it doesn't work out for you, here's my level of services. So we're going to get into ways that you can do it. There's always been ways, there's scales, but you have to be able to say, what is it that you're going to do? And I feel the people that have been good at this all along, the agents that are professional, that go out and really clearly demonstrate what it is that you do, all the work you put into it. People don't realize the work you're doing behind the scenes. You're not telling them all day long everything you're doing for them. Maybe that has to change. And when we get to today, when we talk about how to take action, I'm going to come back to this point, and I have a couple ideas for you where I think you've got, and we have a couple things that you can take from the National Association of Realtors and I think improve upon it to be able to show the hours that you put in behind the scenes. They only know when you're talking to them. Okay, they don't know. They may know, but they probably don't know how much work, how much coordination you're doing for every step of the way, especially when a deal gets into escrow. Okay, so I do think the last reality is going to be the people that have been skating, meaning licensees who've been not really been all in. Maybe they're the hobbyists, I like to call them, part-time. That really don't know how to show their value. I think a lot of people can get out of the business. The ones that have never really, because they're in my whole existence of doing real estate. Luckily, lately, it seems like I've been working with other professionals that work as hard as I do, and we work together collaboratively to get deals done and to be win-win. But I have definitely through my career worked with people who you can't even get a hold of. They bring a buyer. They don't do anything, and they get paid maybe sometimes more than I do. Okay, so there you go. Those people, they're going to have to step it up or move on to something else, because you're not going to be able to just luck into a nice chunky commission and not have to work for it anymore. So right now, here's all the questions and issues that I started thinking about since Friday. Of course, a lot of brokers are now having meetings. Things are rolling out from our various associations, including, the national all the way down, state, local, and so on. The news cycle. Well, one thing about the news cycle, there's always going to be the next thing that's going to move on to it. So right now, it's the news cycle. It dropped on a Friday, right? Which is classic, right? That's what a lot of politicians do, right?
Yep.
You drop the news late on a Friday, and then it goes through the weekend, and so it's going through its cycle. And all you have to do is go Google it, and all you'll see is doom and gloom. The landmark decision, no more 6% commissions. No details. People don't get into the details anymore. They get a sound bite, they see a little snippet on something on TV, and then unfortunately some of the people that they're getting that are the real estate professionals don't understand this, and they're on national TV saying whatever. So it's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions that are out there. And I think that we'll be moving on in the news cycle, and we'll see what happens if and when they actually make it official. Maybe it comes into the news cycle again and it's top of mind. So I think it's business as usual right now until if and when it changes in July, but you're going to go out on appointments and people are going to have questions that are in the know or caught a headline about, we had one client that texted us, and we're in an escrow with them on a new home where the builder is paying the commission, paying the referral, however you want to call it, so costing them a dime. But they texted us and said, this is what they said. The text said, with this new law change with commissions, that's how the person interpreted it. Right. The law is changing about commissions. So can you see how consumers are not digging? They don't care. They're not going to dig in and go, let me go read the NAR settlement. They just heard commissions are getting lower. And so it's like, does this impact our transaction? And I'm like, you're not paying us anything. How could it be? It's not impacting your transaction. The builder, could it? I think they were wondering, does it mean that they're not going to pay us because the law has changed? I'm like, no. We're in a contract. They agreed to pay us. You don't have to pay us anything. We're representing you like we do all the way through the deal. And it's not closing until, August. But isn't that intriguing?
Yeah.
Because that's the reaction. So you're going to get that. So you have to be ready. That's what we want to talk about. All right. So with no co-op in the MLS, what are you supposed to do? I guess right now, until they figure out the mechanism for letting you know, since it can't be in the MLS, which is how we knew if they were offering commission, it's just like what you would have to do with a builder. You'd have to ask the builder, do they offer a co-op? Now you're going to have to call listing agents when this does change, and unless they come up with a way. It's going to be, if you're a listing agent, you're going to be fielding calls all day long from people wanting to know, will the seller offer any compensation?
And don't you feel like that's the one thing that probably will not go away?
What do you mean?
Well, don't you think that whenever this all gets, it's one thing to say this is what we're going to start doing now, but when it comes down to the actual functionality and the real time thing on it, as long as everybody knows the commissions are now miraculously negotiable, right? Don't you think that will still be something that's allowed in the MLS? They're going to have to put something back in, or else it's going to create chaos, just like you're talking about. Is my point?
No, I think that's my point. It's like that.
I don't know about that, Jan.
That field that says co-op. That's my point. They have to come up with some mechanism now.
No, I know that's what I mean, but I think they will come up with something because they have to. There's no way.
I don't know. But it can't be open to the public, so it would have to be. We have the ability to upload documents into the MLS that are only available to agents, and perhaps maybe they come up with ways to say what the seller's willing to do as far as concessions. Because I think and you remember the Department of Justice, DOJ has not backed off. DOJ is still potentially pursuing their own investigation and antitrust stuff and trying to break it all up too. So we have to, it's not all over potentially, right?
No, it's by a long shot.
Right. So I hear what you're saying, but it's a great point because their whole point is trying to say, we don't want you. This is what it's trying to say to the public and to everyone, the attorneys. The seller doesn't have to pay the buyer's agent. Okay. They don't have to pay, and you can't put it up there in any way, shape, or form. So, but however, commissions are negotiable, and that's the reality. And you can negotiate a commission, and it's done all the time in commercial real estate.
I know it's talking out of both sides of their mouth, in my opinion.
Yep,
You know what I mean?
I know.
So it's like, okay,
all right. Well, we're going to have to see. So this is the big question mark. How do we find that out without a mechanism to let people know?
Right.
Now you kind of need to know, because not all buyers are, going to be able to pay a commission.
Mm-hmm.
And if a seller's willing to offer, up to 6% concessions or 4% concessions, the way you're going to be able to structure a deal perhaps is that buyer's closing costs are all covered, and now they have the money because they come in with their down payment and their closing costs, but now they have the money to be able to pay a buyer's agent's commission. So these are all the things that everyone's going, well, how are we going to do this now, right? All right, so what are other questions that have come up for everyone? Now, in case you have been hearing, you can't negotiate commission. I will have in the show notes, it's Standards of Practice 16, 16, it might be 16.6. I might have missed, maybe it is 16.16. 60, Standards of Practice 16-16. So this is a Q&A that NAR put out, and it's got the code of ethics part I'm talking about here. So the question was, wait, doesn't Standards of Practice 16.16 prohibit me from negotiating my commission after showing during the purchase offer phase or after we have an accepted offer? And this is NAR's answer. Absolutely not. Except for the fact that you cannot make an offer to purchase contingent upon an increase in compensation paid to you by the listing broker. You can negotiate your commission. So what was unethical in the past and currently was if the offer of compensation, for example, was 2%, let's say, in the field in the MLS, you couldn't write an offer and put in the offer, my buyer will buy the house if you pay 3%. That's unethical. However, you can negotiate all that. So it goes on to say, you can negotiate a commission with the listing broker at any time during the transaction. It was designed to protect sellers and listing brokers from having their offers held hostage by cooperating brokers demanding a higher commission to be paid by the listing broker. So the whole thing is in there as a download or a link, and you can get it in our show notes. Okay, so I'll give you that link. I think I gave you the link, Matt.
I have it. It'll go in the show notes.
It'll take you to the National Association of Realtors site where you can get it. Okay, so now that opens up the whole thing of what I was just talking about. What's the mechanism? I'm going to show 10 properties today. I have to make 10 phone calls, which we made anyway, to find out, is the property still available? Now the question is going to be, is the seller willing to provide any concessions? Are we able to negotiate that right now and talk about that? And then the next question I have about this is, if we can do that, we're really not supposed to write it in the offer. Now, in our MLS, we have a form that's a notice of co-op change, which is not an appropriate, which is what you used to do. You use, because if everybody agreed to a commission, as we were just stating here, there is an actual MLS form that the agents and the brokers both have to sign that goes with that doesn't necessarily go with the offer. It's between the brokers. Okay. Now that doesn't even make sense anymore because it's a change to what the offer of compensation was. So I think they're going to have to create a form that basically is a form that allows agents and brokers to negotiate commission, and everybody agrees to it, incling the seller.
Jen, you've probably done a buyer-broker agreement since I have. I haven't done one in years and years and years. But now you put the commission in the buyer-brokers agreement. What is the verbiage like in there? You know what I mean?
You agree to whatever the number is. So let's just say I'm going to say, hey, Matt, my compensation is 2.5%. Here's everything that I'm going to do for you. Here's a 3-page document of everything that I do from beginning to end with you. I'm going to walk you through the main things. But behind the scenes, these are all things I'm doing for you to earn that 2.5% commission. Now, how does that get compensated? Well, right currently, unless they make any changes, which they might need to make some changes to the current brokerage agreement, it basically states, well, they are going to have to change it, because it basically states that the buyer will be responsible for any less that is less than what the seller, if the seller is only offering 1%, for example, right, then they're agreeing to pay the difference. So you have to disclose where all your compensation is coming from. And so it might be coming from, on a new build, the builder's offering X in this particular.
Can you imagine now doing amendments to your buyer broker agreement?
Yeah, and you know what? You just made me think of something. So if I'm going to go show 5 builders today, and they all offer different compensation from 1 to, some of them are 3, 3.5, 4, if you're on your multiple deals with them. So what do I have to do now? List something that says my commission is, I'll accept the commission when you buy a new home, based on what they're offering, and you don't owe us anything.
Yeah, so that's like I've been going.
Range pricing, right? I mean, it's just really a nightmare. I mean, it's really a lot, and we're all thinking about this. Okay, so let's go on to some other questions and issues. So most buyers want representation. This is the good news. Okay, some may now, however, start, and people already do this, right? But some buyers may just be contacting a listing agent. I don't want to have to pay a referral, a buyer. I don't think I need it. I think I can get, this is why they call the listing agents now. I want to get a better deal. If you don't have to pay an agent, then I'm going to get a better deal with you, which is possibly true. Okay. So I think there's going to be more buyers calling listing agents and saying, I want to write an offer. And I don't need anybody to represent me. However, I think a lot of buyers are still going to want representation, because I think they'll feel that they're not really being represented, because the listing agent will have the seller's best interest, even though they're supposed to treat everybody fairly, you know? So you have to show your value. Why does a buyer or seller want to work with you? We're going to give you some ideas on that here at the end. First-time home buyers, VA buyers, HUD buyers, low down payment buyers are the ones who are continue to get pushed aside. And these are the biggest losers in this deal, okay? Because a VA right now, and honestly, even though this lawsuit's been going on for a couple of years, it's government entities. I hear from people that I know that go to the National Association events as delegates and directors and whatnot, that those entities like HUD, VA, Fannie, Freddie are working on it. But this happened Friday. There are no changes. And right now, the rules of the VA say the buyer cannot pay any commission. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? Sorry,
what the hell does that mean?
What does that mean, VA buyers? sorry, we can't represent you unless we can find a seller who's willing to pay my commission, because I can't work for free. I paid it for you. I'm a veteran.
Right.
So I'm sure that might change, but who knows how long that's going to take. Okay. Same with HUD and Fannie. Right now, I would talk to my lender, who then, because all the lenders are getting information from all the higher up and entities saying there's no plans on changing anything right now. They have to go think this all through. And whatever changes is going to probably take a year to implement. So what does that mean? Sorry, VA buyer, you're hosed unless you have money for a down payment, or you don't have to have money for a down payment, but you're willing to pay a commission. It's just really crazy. Same thing for the first time, or the people that only have enough money for a down payment. Now, and this brings up this issue. So how do we do this? So if we have a buyer that wants to buy a home and they want us to represent them, so what do we have to do is say, of all the houses that you want to buy, 10 of them, only 3 of them are willing to pay, or allow us to put it into the offer. So are you okay with those?
Right.
And now what do you do as an agent? Do you say, I can only show you properties, if you can't pay me, I can only show you properties that, how unethical is this? That are willing to pay me? So your choice is 3 out of 10 houses?
It's just ridiculous, because this is part of the problem anyway in the class action, right? That it's steering away from certain commission prices.
You can't do that.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
But we can't work for free either. So as an agent, you're going to have to say, I'm a veteran. I really want to figure out a way that we can do this. I'm going to work very hard to find a home where the seller we can put it into the offer, or we can get concessions paid and they cover your costs, and then you can pay me my fee of X. How does that sound? But you're going to have to. You can't work for free, guys. I think everybody would understand that. So we're going to have to see. Maybe those entities increase the seller contribution limits, because every loan has a contribution limit, a seller concession limit. Maybe those can change. My thoughts are they do that, and maybe they allow commission to be considered a closing cost. It is a closing cost. It's not considered a closing cost, but maybe the entities allow the buyer to finance the commission, okay? Which in essence is what they were doing with their offer.
It's the same thing. It's all,
right? Mm-hmm. So how does it impact home prices? Well, if you listen to the headlines right now, it's all about home prices are going to come down. It's going to be more affordable. And I don't agree, because home prices are always going to be determined by what's going on in the market, supply and demand, interest rates, and inventory. So currently we have high interest rates, not as much demand as normal. We're coming into the spring market. Some people are tired of waiting and they're out buying that it can afford to buy. And there's still not a lot of inventory out there. So we have a shortage of inventory. When that changes, then I personally feel prices will go up, because there'll be competition. There'll be, competition. But like I just said earlier, 5 offers come in because now the interest rates are lower. They're in the 6s. There are people who can pay commission, people who can't pay commission, and their offers are all going to be different, and the seller's going to go with what's best for them, which is the person is cash. Cash is always going to win when it gets crazy like that, and no worried about appraisals, and then the least amount of concessions is going to win. All right, so once again, we're back to who wins on the buyer side here? Buyers who have money. Buyers who have money for a down payment can pay when the market shifts, and it will eventually, who can pay for overappraised value if we get back into that kind of market. Right now, there are offers are competitive in our marketplace anyway, when a home is in pristine condition, it's move-in ready, and it's been updated. It gets multiple offers, and it will sell at list or higher. Okay, so there you go. And if a buyer has to pay commission, I again keep on saying, if the seller's not willing to offer any concessions to the buyer, then the buyer is definitely going to be writing a lower offer. Okay, so and that is good for the buyer if we're in a buyer's market, which we're not really, meaning that the seller doesn't have much choice. There's nobody wanting to buy their house, so that will bring prices. That could potentially bring prices down in that scenario. A high buyer's market where we have so much inventory and not enough people buying, whether we're paying commissions or not, that would bring prices down. Okay, so what's going to happen to MLSs in the country was my next question. in the National Association of Realtors, are these big brokers that have not been included in this settlement?
Yeah.
How do you think they're feeling right now about paying their dues, and with all their hundreds of thousands of agent members and National Association of Realtors? Now, what National Association of Realtors is saying, because I just listened to a video from their attorney, is that they put into the settlement a path forward for those 2 billion plus brokers to find a way to settle, or to get, to do their part. Okay. Which is just a nice way of saying, we try to set it up for you, but you're going to have to pay. Okay.
Oh God. Wow.
So, but I mean, there's just so much, because you're not required to be, if you as an agent are with a broker who is a member of NAR and the state and local association, then you have to be a member. Right. But there are states where the MLSs are not owned by the local MLSs. So I just have questions. Are we going to see a breakup of that? Is NAR going to not be as powerful? Which is really what the people sitting on the sidelines that are the big businesses are loving this. The big guys, the really big guys, that the Vanguards and BlackRocks and all the guys, the entities that are behind where all the money players are in all the various industries of the world, haven't been able to get into this business. Zillow has tried and done well with a model that they have, but they're going to have to change that. Nobody wants to buy buyer's leads right now.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Their model is advertising.
Yeah.
And getting agents to buy the leads. And they don't even, now it's 40% referral. Hey, Matt, here's a buyer. Give me a 40% referral. And oh, by the way, that buyer's going to have to pay your commission.
Yeah.
That is over.
That's super appealing.
Okay, so they're going to have to change their models, and they're going to be wondering, can we put co-op up there? But, by that, how can, here's the deal. The settlement has nothing to do with, is only with NAR, okay? So NAR feeds the data, the MLSs feed the data to Zillow. So do we now have, which is what Zillow and others tried to do a while ago, several years ago, they tried to go directly to brokers to get the feeds.
Because, Jan, we're going to go back to the good old listing book.
Maybe. I mean, I'm telling you, Matt, I'm seeing a picture of all these new Zillow and other reorganized portals and more popping up saying, sellers, put your listing here. This is how buyers are going to find it. Not through the
that's the thing. There's going to be a lot of that probably going to be happening. There's no doubt, right? Because it's, people trying to seize the opportunity.
So let's see. I think there's going to be innovation. There's going to be new models that pop up. There's definitely going to be, you could see Zillow as a broker. Maybe Zillow goes to a kind of a Redfin model where they already have it, agents that work for them, that maybe you end up having, maybe they're going to be services out there where I see this happening. I've always seen this coming at some point in the future anyway, where this brokerage, it could be Zillow, whoever, that says you get paid this much because you're going to go show properties.
Yeah.
And that's all you're going to do. Or this group of people, people are going to submit an offer online and you're going to help them with that. So I don't know. There could be a specialization coming up in a breakup in having like right now, when you think about it, buyers, if they go to an auction site, they have to pay a fee. If buyers, buyers are paying like an auction fee, okay, built in online. Like these auctions have all gone online now, and then the buyer builds in a 3% fee that they have to pay. Okay, that's put into their offer. So we'll see what happens. So how do Homes and Zillow, what do they do to adapt? We're going to have to wait and see. I just said creative models, menus of services, advance fees. Okay, so in your state, you're going to have to find out if your state law allows an advance fee. In Nevada, we can have an advance fee, but this is can be a little complicated for brokers. And this is how an advance fee works. It basically is you can be paid for services rendered once you've rendered the services. So when this became popular here for us, when I was a broker, was when we had all the short sales in the country and the foreclosures. So agents were spending hours helping homeowners put together their hardship and short sale packages as a consultation and charging a fee for it. That's legal, but in the state of Nevada, it's legal if the broker sets up a separate trust account. So let's say my fee is $500 for doing this service. And you have to, as an agent, you have to list your services, present that. The person that the consumer has to be aware and agree that you've received the services, and then they pay the broker $500. And then it's how you ever work with your broker, wherever your split is. I see that possibly happening in parts where people come up with ways that they show homes, or they find ways to not spend as much time with a buyer by doing certain services a la carte. If you want the full menu of services from everything that I do, then this is my commission. This is my minimum commission. This is the percentage. This is the minimum that I will accept because I cannot, otherwise I can't work with you. But I can put this many hours in for this fee. That's maybe something that's going to happen, right? Definitely competitive models. There's already brokers out there trying to figure out, is the answer, to me, the answer is not to just be the cheapest. There's already tons of cheapest in discounts. And what comes with that is cheap service. Yep. Because it's volume. If I'm only going to charge a small amount, then I can't spend as much time with you, and I have to do that and move on because I have to work harder now to make the money that I was going to make, right? Overall consensus, there's going to be less commissions made, I think. Less commissions per transaction made. With people getting out of the business and the people that are good, they're going to have more business, but they're going to have to figure out how they leverage what services they provide and still provide quality customer service, but it's just, there's so many questions, man. I don't even know where to go. Right. So what we do now is we right now, since it's not changing until potentially July, and then I personally feel if it's not even settled, completely approved by months from now, we'll see if that happens. But when, in fact, there is no more co-op in the MLS and you must have a buyer brokerage agreement. So right now you need to start working on it. So if you're right now, let me tell you, I think it's all about listings. How many times have we said all this year?
We started January 1st on this one. So there you are.
Listings. Why? Because sellers are tired of waiting. Also, there's people that want to sell their houses and they're just not doing it because they have a low interest rate. They have a sub-3 interest rate. Let's face it, 2.75, 3.25, and the interest rates are 7, right? So here's the deal. It's everything we've already talked about. You should have already been doing this. Do you have a powerful listing consultation and presentation to outline your services from A to Z? If not, you need to get on it. There are 2 documents that we're going to put in the show notes that are over at the NAR.competition, which is where a lot of resources have been for a year now from the National Association of Realtors. And one of them is 179 ways I'm worth my commission. Okay. You can use that and add it to it, or I recommend highly that you put these kind of things together. You have to really show people how much you do. If they're going to happen in July, you better be ready. You need to be able to sit down and explain what changed. Not that the law changed and that commissions have legally been through some law.
That's really key.
Been that you automatically are being paid less. You have to go out and talk about the rules changed. And here's why it changed, and here's what was happening. The commissions have always been negotiable. This is what I charge. And then you're going to have to just decide. Because right now people will be like, well, so-and-so we'll do it for 1%. And I'm like, you're right. And I can give you 10 others who will do it for that or less. But all you're going to get is that. So if that's all you want, then then you need to pass, folks, unless you're going to become a discount broker and just do volume. If it's not your model, then you have to pass on that listing. So I think we're just going to go through a time where people are going to be like, I still need to have the best person negotiating for me. Because ultimately, if you don't have a good real estate agent seller, then I can show you in all my transactions how I have netted more for my seller. So you got to do all those things. Like
especially right now when there's so many multiple offers and there's just so much going on. It's like you need it more now than you ever have needed it.
And then you have to basically say commissions have always been negotiable. Here's mine. Or here's my menu of service. I have plan A, plan B, and plan C. Which one do you want? That's where I think I'm going to go. Okay. And paying like that's what you're going to pay my broker for the listing side. Now let's talk about whether or not you want to offer concessions or you want to offer be willing to pay which is totally up to the seller. It just can't be in the MLS. It doesn't say the seller doesn't pay. It says the seller you can't make the seller put an amount in the MLS because there's not going to be an MLS field. So we have to talk them through and use that idea of, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a net sheet on the way we've always done it, and that has to be careful. You can't say the way we've always done it is part of the language that but I'm going to put one in where you're willing to offer that to maybe expose it to the most possible buyers with agents, okay? Buyers that don't have the money to pay it, buyers that do. Let's face it, if we get into a market where your house is going to get a lot of offers, then you're going to go with what's the best one for you, but let's expose it to the most amount of people if you're willing to do it. Here's the mechanism that we can do that. Now, let me do a net sheet for you at that, because I think that's where you're going to get a competitive offer. Now, you can completely not offer anything, but let's just be prepared that the buyer is going to now know that it used to be included in their offer to you that you were going to compensate their agent. Now they're going to take that out. So let me do a net sheet where we take that out. And let's look at the bottom line. And the bottom line is going to be the same. This is the biggest way. You have to focus on the net with the seller.
Yep.
That's what they care about. They don't care about, they may think it's about a commission. That's what they're going to say, but it's about what you do to get them to net the most. That's right. The bottom line. So you're going to have to really be good at that. You have to be a master at net sheets. Okay. And that's really what I think you have to do. And then I just definitely think a scale is maybe the way to go. So educate the seller, see what they want to do. Right now, the co-op can still be in the MLS. Let me tell you a trick on that real quick before we talk about buyers. When you go on a listing appointment until it changes, pull up all their competition, print out all the competition availables, and circle what the co-op is. Okay, so you can see, because I think you're going to start seeing some low, some high. And you need to be able to say to the seller, the majority of sellers still right now are offering some kind of compensation and they're still probably going to offer that, just we can't put in the MLS, right? That's where I'm hoping it's all going to go, but we'll see. Buyers right now, okay, here we go. A total buyer consultation where you answer their questions and you talk about what's happening right now using the same idea. If they're going to go look in the MLS, you have to use a buyer brokerage agreement. You should start using it right now. Come up with what's your minimum commission you're willing to accept, and then be ready to talk about how you're going to offset the commission that they have to pay based on any offer of compensation from a builder or a seller that we're going to just build into the offer. Okay. Or if they're willing to offer concessions and we get all your closing costs covered, then that's where that percent that we've agreed upon can come, because now you have the cash to be able to pay that broker fee. Okay. I think you can come up with a menu of services. We've just talked about a few things. Maybe you end up changing the model of what you do. Who knows? But start using the buyer brokerage agreement. Explain how you'll be able to maybe put it into the offer. You're going to have to do extra work now to talk to everybody to see what's available. You might be able, in a market where if it's priced properly, you might be able to come in over the list price so that there's the seller's willing to give up some more of those concessions to cover the compensation to the buyer's agent. But then you have to worry about appraisal issues, right? And so there could be a little mixture in between. Maybe they only have to pay a portion of what you put down because you can get some of it covered. This is the deal. It's going to be deal to deal, transaction to transaction, and you have to be able to explain it. But it all starts with, here's what I do for you. And if you're not giving them a 2 or 3 page document of everything you do for them that they're aware of, and then behind the scenes, then they're not seeing where the value is. Okay.
And really and truly, it's about educating yourself with these forms too. I mean, that buyer broker agreement's been around forever, and sure, it's made, it's had augmentations over the years. But for crying out loud, if you get it, I can just hear what realtors will be saying. I know you can too, Gian. It's like, oh my God, don't say any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Don't poo-poo this process, because once you do that, you've lost credibility. You need
totally.
to be.
You can't say this is how it's always been. This is just
right.
what it is. It's just. It's like it's always been negotiable, okay? Yep. And it's always been, and even there have always been people who are willing to discount their commission. There's people who stand up and say, this is what I'm worth, because they believe in themselves and they deliver that level of value. So,
do you remember the days, so Jana, back when I was at First Team years and years ago, it would the push was all for the 7% commission.
Yeah, totally.
And people got them, right? Because they could show their value. Anyway, it's so interesting. It's like
come a long way, right? So on the buyer side, in case you didn't know, National Association, NAR, is offering for the rest of the 2024, and there's still tons of classes available. They're all done online, like Zoom live instruction, absolutely free. So if you do not, I signed up for one. Don't have the ABR, accredited buyer representation. go get this training. Go get some listing training. There's listing certification classes too if you're not up to speed with this, because that's what you have to do right now. You're going to have to really show your value, and you may need some refresher training or get this ABR, because they're definitely going to be talking about the buyer brokerage agreement and how to get that and how to show your value, and maybe get some ideas to help you. That's a $295 value, so go sign up. There's even I'm taking one that's going to be live in our association that's free. But you can also do it online. But maybe your association is bringing in ABR, and I recommend highly that you go get that done right now.
And we do have a link for that in the show notes over at WBNL Podcast.
For the one at NAR, yeah. Okay, good.
Exactly.
So there you go, folks. That is, the story is fluid, right? It is fluid. This has just happened as we record this. It just happened on a few days ago. And
the fact of the matter is, there's more questions now than there are answers. See, it's like, the sky is not falling yet, right? And I don't really think it will. But
I will just leave you with, I have always said in when I taught short sale training with my friend Steve Kitnick, and I were just talking about this. He's a trainer here, and we put a whole certification course together during the foreclosure days. And we opened that class always with, change is the only constant.
Yep.
And those who can adapt to change quickly, and that means change in the market, now we have change in our industry practice, are the ones who are going to thrive. So if you embrace the change right now, if you have been knowing this was coming, maybe you've already been working on it, but now it's here. Now you either just adapt or you get out. Really. So adapt. Be one of the ones that see the opportunity to show your value. See, if you're a value-based, you believe in your ability and you're good at what you do, you're going to rise to the top, and you're going to attract people that are happy to pay your commission. Okay, you're going to find a way to make that work. I feel super bad about veterans and HUD, FHA buyers, and people that are first time or have low down payments, but I also feel that will change, because it's not going to take long. Think of the repercussions of months from now, all these buyers talking to their congressmen and senators to say, I can't buy a house now.
Right.
I was already hard for me to buy a house, but now I have to pay a commission. What are you guys going to do for us? So there will be some grant programs or something that's going to roll out to support the small buyer who has been squeezed out so often. And the VA is going to have to change some rules. So I don't know what to say about that. There are veteran buyers who have money. It's not that they don't have the money. It's just they don't have to make the down payment. They may have the money to pay the commission and want to pay for that. Because otherwise, I feel like they're going to be taken advantage of. That's the problem.
For sure.
That's the big downside. And I think the losers are the buyers, those buyers right now. And buyers agents are the losers who aren't going to be able to adapt in this whole thing. Listing agents, if you're good at listing, keep on going. If you're not, go learn how to take listings. Exactly. There you go.
All right. Well, and like we said, this is a fluid story, and we're going to be staying on top of this. So keep checking back with us. We're going to be putting out information as we get to we find out about it, as things change, as things become more concrete, because right now this is the wettest concrete there is. There's keep checking back in, and we're going to keep you informed on that. So if you go to our show notes to get all the information from today, including the links Jan talked about and the downloads that she talked about over at WBNLpodcast.com. This was episode 284, and until next time, get up, get out. Don't do the freak out dance. All right, you know what I mean? No. Just take deep breaths. Going to get through this. You're going to get through this if you want to get through it. You're definitely going to get through it.
Yeah, go do the daily.
Yeah, go do it. You know what? It all really is solved by the daily. So, and then be forever wandering but not lost.
Awesome. Dun, 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 dun.
Well, welcome everyone to the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast for real estate and reality. Nope. We said we weren't going to say that anymore.
We got to start over.
We decided we weren't going to say that anymore. Well, welcome everyone to the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast, where we learn how to. Nope. Let me think. How am I going to say that? How do you fit Align, Connect, Prosper in there? Well, welcome everyone to the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast, where we talk about aligning, connecting, and prospering. Today on the podcast, we're going to talk about, I don't like any of that.
How about
where you align, connect, and prosper?
Yeah, or our goal is to help you align, connect, and prosper, or something like that.
Okay.
Various ways to say
I like that. That's good too. Just so you know, when you've said something for 5 years, it's hard to change. Well, welcome everyone to the WBNL Wandering But Not Lost podcast.
Everybody take a deep breath. Let's do a little meditation.
We'll have some outtakes today.
Deep breath.
Breathe.